Welcome to the Hope Warrior Project podcast, where we bring you an extra dose of hope to help you get over the humps of life. I'm Stephanie Martino.
And I'm Lydia Zuniga, and together we are bringing you real stories of hope from real people. We believe by hearing other people's stories of challenge and transformation, we can all gain some hope for ourselves.
So if you've been looking to find and hold on to hope, you're in the right place. Join us on this journey as we all become warriors of hope.
Hey everyone, we have a special guest with us today. I am super excited about. Melanie Mogensen actually reached out to us, it was before COVID, I guess, so months ago, because she actually runs a blog and some social platforms called The Hopeful Warrior. You'll notice that's very close to our name as Hope Warrior Project. And so we found some real synergies and some commonalities. And so she is here today to talk about her particular journey of going through Hodgkin lymphoma diagnosis and her journey through that. And she's got an amazing, encouraging, inspiring story to share with us. So let me tell you a little bit about her first. So Melanie, she is a writer and she's a wife and mother of three. And through this experience, she knows how life can change in such an instant. As I mentioned, she was diagnosed with stage 3 Hodgkin lymphoma. And during this, she started sharing her story on a blog and kind of putting herself out there and letting others know that, even in these horrible, difficult times that we can go through in life, that there is hope and there is life after that. And there's something to be grateful for. So I'm really excited, and Lydia is too, I know, to have Melanie with us today. So thank you, Melanie, for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. It's wonderful to see your face, and you too, Lydia.
Thanks, Melanie. It feels like it's been so long since we originally connected over the fact that we are both passionate about being a Hope Warrior, right? So, and then to find out that we were like in the same area.
I know, I had no idea.
Was nuts too, because we connected through social media, and then we're like, wait, we're not that far from each other. So I remember sitting around Stephanie's table and talking and getting to know you. And yeah, that feels like so long ago, but I'm happy that we're finally doing this interview for real. So take us back to when you first found out about your diagnosis and kind of what you were going through emotionally. And if you want to share a little bit about the whole seatbelt story and how that seatbelt saved your life, I think that's a cool story.
Yeah, thanks. So it's pretty surreal actually, because it's almost like, I like to say, like God draws straight with crooked lines, because like the way things just end up like working out, like things coming full circle, because literally I was diagnosed around this exact time of the year 3 years ago. So it was right. I first kind of noticed something a little bit strange while I was driving in October, with like late October with my kids, the way the seatbelt was hitting my neck. And I was kind of like, oh, what is that? And little did I know that a seatbelt can save your life in more ways than just in an accident, because it was just the way the seatbelt was hitting my neck, and I kind of felt around and I was like, oh, that doesn't feel right. It was a nodule that shouldn't been there, and I went and got it checked out. And then that kind of started this whole lot of tests and scans later, and they were able to determine that it was cancer. So yeah, it ended up being just a seatbelt that kind of cued me into that and let me take a little bit more investigation into what was going on with my health. And yeah, it was a pretty wild ride, because at that point when I finally got diagnosed, I had just celebrated my birthday. So my birthday is a week after Thanksgiving, and I got the news, and then it's right in the middle of the holiday season, and I had 3 small children. My youngest were twins, so they were 3 at the time. And so here I am with this news, and it's life-altering news. And I remember getting the call when my twins were actually in preschool. So I got a call because I had surgery to remove the suspicious lymph node, because part of the process when they suspect cancer is, blood work, but then ultimately they have to take a biopsy to kind of definitively know. And so I got the biopsy results when my twins were at school. And so there was this kind of like gray area of like me knowing that our lives had completely changed. And now I have to tell my husband, I have to call him at work and tell him this. Now I have to kind of pull myself together and somehow pick my kids up from school and like, and not tell them, because it's the middle of the holiday season. Like, until I know more about what I'm facing, I can't tell them possibly what I'm going through. So there is a lot of emotions going on in this season, of like everyone's hope and be merry, and I'm just like, my whole life is falling apart. And and miraculously, like I said, God draws straight with crooked lines. Like, just somehow the right people started kind of finding their way into my path, from a surgeon to the oncologist that I was able to get matched with at Northwestern was, she was leading one of the first clinical trials for immunotherapy, which is a new kind of cancer treatment. So all this time I was like, oh my God, I wish I would have been diagnosed sooner. Why didn't I pay closer attention to my health or some of these signs? And it was like, no, this is actually the exact right time that you should be diagnosed, because I ended up, through the grace of God, getting into this clinical trial with this new treatment. So yeah, it's just been an incredible ride.
I mean, I can't imagine, I've not had any experience like this, so it's like one of those things you try to imagine. I'm sure there's no way I can imagine how you were feeling. And like you said, that whole, the holiday season, supposed to be happy, joyful, merry, and then you got this news, and I'm sure that was just a real hard emotional contrast to work through. I mean, how did that kind of affect you in your day to day, and how did you manage that?
Yeah, so it really had to kind of, at first I kind of went within, because I couldn't really tell my kids, so I kind of had to pretend like everything is a little bit okay, like they knew something was wrong with mom, but until I kind of got my bearings, I really just kind of had to just kind of make my peace with God and almost just surrender to the fact that, okay, this is what it is. I can't change this, but, how can I make this meaningful? Where there's going to be a lot of pain, there's going to be a lot of discomfort and uncertainty, but there's meaning here somewhere, and where can I find that? And I was really fortunate. One of the first things I did was connect with other cancer survivors through some online support groups. So that really, like, just connecting with other survivors before I even told friends and family, I went right to other people that in their private groups. So like, I knew that anything I posted, like, no one could see, which was really reassuring. And so that gave me a lot of peace right away, because they were able to tell me, like, I'm like, how do I tell my kids? Like, what did you do? And they gave me great advice, and they gave me a lot of peace knowing of like what to do. So that helped prepare me. And my husband and I worked up a plan of how to tell everyone in the right time. And that was a tremendous resource. So not only did they help me prepare my kids to break the news, but they also helped prepare me for my first treatment, because getting in these like support groups was, I knew, like, I felt like I had an insider scoop where they're like, okay, this is what you need to ask for. This is the medicine you need. This is, on your first day, make sure that you eat something. And this is how you put the pork cream on, like all different things that our doctors really don't know, because you have limited time with them. So it was super valuable to get connected with the support community right out of the gate.
That's awesome. It just speaks, I mean, community in itself is important, right? But what a wonderful resource for you during this time. I can't imagine trying to go through that without that support. Obviously you hadn't been through that before, so how would you know how to handle all of these situations? So it's awesome that you were able to use that. When we talked before, you mentioned around this time, you decided, or someone had mentioned maybe starting a blog.
They did, yeah. So once I started opening up and finally telling people of what I'm dealing with, because I actually didn't come forward. I waited till after the holidays to make it public. And once I did, people were just kind of amazed at how I was kind of taking things in stride. And they were just saying, well, you should maybe try to share this and maybe think about starting a blog or a YouTube channel. And I'm so introverted by nature that the thought of, sharing myself in a vlog or a video makes me really nervous. So I was like, oh yeah, maybe. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, there's something here, because I'm a writer by nature. I journal all the time. I'm always writing lists of, things, and it really helps. So I decided to, create a blog and a Facebook page, just keep family and friends updated. And then from there, it just started kind of growing. And now it brings me a lot of peace every day to kind of see how much the community is growing, because the reason I really decided to start my blog was because of the treatment that I was fortunate to get, because it was so new that I figured, okay, well, this is probably, my experience is one thing, but this is a new treatment. So if I can document my journey, then that could potentially help other people that maybe wouldn't be considering this new immunotherapy treatment, because I found out that I think it's less than like 5% of cancer patients actually consider a clinical trial. It's very, very low, and most of them are younger in general. And so there's a huge need for more people to enroll in clinical trials, because that's what helps advance cancer treatment, but a lot of people don't. So I figured this might be a way to help people encourage more clinical trials. So that was one of the reasons I started it. And it's just been really great, because I've connected with other cancer survivors and fighters all over the world through my blog and through these online Facebook groups. So it's been really incredible to see these last 3 years, how many people I've been able to touch. Well, it's just the courage to just go ahead and start a blog. So.
And your blog is named?
HopefulWarrior.com.
HopefulWarrior.com. Love it. What else did you do during this time? I know you actually had joined one of our academies last year. Was it earlier this year? I'm totally losing track of time.
I am losing track of time too, but I did. So I came across, that's kind of what I think around the time that I actually reached out to you, was because I was starting to kind of think of different ways of growing my blog, and I was working on a project with Northwestern with other cancer survivors, and I'd come across your website and your Hope Academy, and I joined that, and I just loved it, and I got so much out of it. So that's when I reached out to you. So your Hope Warrior Academy, as well as your newer group, what is Encouragement for Uncertain Times, that Facebook group. That's one of literally the reasons I go on social media now, is because it always brightens my day, the things that you're posting, and just being able to connect with other people and really know that I'm not in this alone. We're all going through similar things, and I might be going through cancer, but other people are dealing with things just as hard. They're grieving loved ones, they're losing jobs, there's a lot of uncertainty. So just to have a community, to know that we're all in this together, it's so rewarding, because social media can be kind of divisive in times like this, but I really feel these online support communities are just the silver lining of social media. It's made all the difference, honestly, in my life. So thank you. Really, thank you for your Hope Warrior Academy and your group. Honestly, it's been life-changing.
Oh, thank you.
Well, that's awesome to hear.
I know.
And I love that you said that about social media, because just like everything, right, it's a tool, right? People can say money is evil, but then you can do amazing things with money, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can do charities and stuff like that. So it's just like that. It's you can use it for good, or you can use it for bad and corruption and stuff. So so many people are just ditching social media because of the bad aspects of it. But it's important to know that you can customize your social media to be what you want it to be. So following the right people, and and being a part of these, like, I think private groups is really what is becoming popular on Facebook, because it's like you want to surround yourself with the people that value the same things that you do. And those private groups are the best way to do that, because you search something that's important to you, you join the group, and then there you go. You have a community of people that, loves the same type of dog you do, or loves to go hiking just like you do, or loves hope and encouragement like you do. So, I think that's a really good point to make, because I think a lot of people just feel like I go on social media and I'm just attacked with all the negativity, and that's maybe one of the biggest reasons Steph and I created Hope Warrior Project, was because of that. Like, we wanted to kind of offset it, because we felt that way, right? Like, everywhere I look, I'm hearing messages, you're not enough, the world is, an evil place, like everything is bad, bad, bad. And it was like, no, that's not true, right? Like, it's all perspective, and it depends on like what you're taking in and what you're accepting as your truth. So so I love that. And I love that you were able to take that hopeful mindset like early on. I remember when we were originally talking about your journey, and you were saying how when you got the diagnosis, like there was a part of you that was like relieved almost.
Yes.
Like, felt good because like you could put a name to it, and like for you that was like, okay, like I can deal with it now that I know what it is.
Yeah, so it was like 3 years when I was finally diagnosed, where I was dealing with all these symptoms of, fatigue and just low energy, and just odd symptoms that I thought was, well, obviously I have twins and, an older child, and I'm working, and that's what it is. And then when I finally was diagnosed with cancer, it was like, oh, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. It isn't rheumatoid arthritis, or, I'm not just depressed. Like, there is a physical reason for feeling this way. And so it was oddly validating. But now I had this answer that I could go and face and attack. So yeah, it was an interesting kind of way to look at it, but it was a way to kind of flip it and make it empowering.
Well, yeah, I can relate. I feel the same way, and I don't know if everybody's like this, but it's like I want to know what I'm dealing with, and it's like, even if it's bad, like I just want to know so that I can, figure out how to approach it. And so I don't know, I just really like related to that, because most people would hear that and be like, oh my gosh, like you finding out you have cancer is like a relief, or it's like in some way, grounding. It seems like it would be like the worst news ever. But yeah, just having like an answer, and then being like, okay, like now at least I know that I can look for these cancer communities, and I can tap into these other resources that are out there. And then also another thing I really wanted to commend you for was like the blog, because like it's one thing to go out there and like consume, go out there into these communities and just read other people's posts and take in their information. But because that helped you felt inspired to like also put your perspective out there. And that's important, right? Because if those people didn't do it for you, you wouldn't have that from them. And so, and everybody connects with different people. So it's like, people think like, oh, I don't want, people don't care about what I have to say. Like, there's so many people in the world, like there's specific people that will be drawn to your story, and you will make a difference in their lives. And it's crazy, like now, especially with the internet, how we can have an impact, like such a huge impact on somebody's life and never know it, right? You can write something and somebody reads it and they're like, oh my God, mind blown, like changes their whole mindset on life. And like, maybe one day in heaven, you'll get a list of all the work that you did that you had no idea. But, and I think it's really healing too for you, because, part of our journey is like acceptance of our stories. And so writing about it is so healing, because it's just, this is what I've been through. This is what I've learned. And so even if nobody reads it, it's like a beautiful thing, because, it's you putting that out there into the universe. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
It is. And a lot of the reason too, I was encouraged to start it is because, you know, the stories that we tell ourselves is a huge part of our health. And so once I kind of started to understand that, even just as simple as the language that I use, like, right, like I have cancer, right? Like, oh, I'm fighting cancer right now, but I'm not cancer. And so that's kind of a little, dichotomy that you have to kind of work with yourself, because it is a process, and there is really not really a finish line with cancer, because there's, even when I am in remission now, I'm thankful to be 2 years in remission, but I'm still struggling with health effects and things like that. So there is no real like end to cancer. It just becomes something that I deal with, and maybe like a lens that I view things with, but it's not all of me. It's just part of my story, but not just stopping there and saying, oh my God, I have cancer, and that's the end of my story. My blog has really been a journey of how does this, change my story? What does this mean? How can this help other people? This is almost the start of my story in a weird way. So it's been really, cathartic to see that. And then even, if people don't always respond on the back end of it, I can actually see that my story has been reached like all around the world. And so every day, like one of my little joys is waking up and seeing, just how far my story's reached. And like thousands of people, this year, and a lot, I'm almost at like 15,000 people in 1 year that have been to my blog just to, that have found something meaningful there. So, it's something to be proud of. And so, I'm, as uncomfortable as it can be sometimes to go and push post, I'm happy that I've been able to do it. So thank you for saying that.
Absolutely. And I love that you just made a comment about this could be like, it's kind of the beginning of your story. I feel like we've almost seen that as a bit of a theme or a trend on a lot of the people that we've talked to, because, seriously, we can go through life and just have, nothing, if nothing ever went wrong, if everything just was perfect, we had never had any struggles, never had any challenges. I mean, it's just kind of a boring story, right? There's not much story there. And so I think a lot of times when we have these things that happen in our lives, not that we want them to happen, not that we wish for them to happen, they're going to, they're going to happen. But when they do, it gives us this chance to think differently about who we are, how we are living our lives, what it means to us. And like telling your story and write about it, I think just gives that clarity to you even about what your story is. I think the more that I even talk about things that I've been through, it helps me gain a different perspective on it. That if I'm just thinking about it or keep it in my head, I don't get that same perspective. And so I think there's a lot of benefit and gain from being able to talk about and share your story, even for you, not to mention the 15,000 plus people that you are impacting that are reading about your story. So I love it.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah. And I know you wanted to share a book that really impacted you, which I think fits in really good with like this whole finding meaning in your pain, which I read the same book. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about it, because I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, so one of the books that crossed my path right before I started chemo was Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And so if you're unfamiliar with the book, he was a Holocaust survivor and a psychiatrist. So he had a very unique perspective going through what he went through, and what he observed through Auschwitz was that those that were able to survive were those that were able to hold on to the meaning. You could take everything away from a man, but it's the meaning that you're able to find even in the most horrible circumstances. So that's kind of what I drew from when I was, going through cancer. Was I can't change that I'm going through this. It is what it is, but what can I do with the situation to help other people? So yeah, there's always purpose, even in pain. So yeah, it's a wonderful book. I highly recommend.
Yeah. So how is like what's life like now? How is all this? Because obviously this diagnosis gave you kind of like a purpose or like a drive to go into all this kind of like personal development type stuff, which that's what like these things do, right? These crises. Is that how you say it, girl? Crises. Like when we're in crisis, like we're motivated to like make a change, right? Or at least I'm hoping. Instead of just being like, why me? Eventually you hit a point where you're like, I need to, kind of find some sort of control and make myself better in this situation or show up better to this situation. Which is obviously what happened for you. And you really like dove deep into these books and like you said, the communities and blogging and all that. So I mean, obviously, like you said, you're in remission. So it helped your body, which there's a huge link there. Of course, it's all connected. It's all connected. People think like your thoughts are just, no, they affect your physical body. And if you don't face things that are going on in your mind, like your body, like things will happen and it'll manifest in your physical body. So, I mean, I think that your hopeful mindset definitely played a huge role in physically healing your body. But I know for a fact that you are benefiting from that in a whole ton of other ways. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm in remission, so I'm happy to report I'm 2 years in remission, and a lot of that, was through my treatment, thankful to immunotherapy, because I feel like the combination of that and chemo really helped me beat stage 3 Hodgkin's lymphoma. And once I was able to get into remission, the first kind of year in remission was kind of like, all right, I made it the physical part. I crossed the physical line into remission. But then it was like the mental part of it, like, all right, well, where do I go from here? So it was digging into those books, the groups, connecting with other survivors. I've been fortunate to join with some wonderful organizations like Immerman's Angels, so I can be a peer mentor to others that are going through cancer. And then really just digging into kind of my own mental health, right? Checking in with myself. Just because I'm in remission doesn't always mean that I'm in the clear, and other things can come up, and it's still kind of a journey mentally when you're in there, because you have a lot of anxiety coming up with scans, and you're still kind of being monitored, and there's some anger, that you kind of find like, I just went through this, and like, it can be very lonely because other people around you will be like, well, you're in remission now, like, things are great. And as part of you is like, well, I don't always feel like I'm in the clear, because as soon as I have a weird symptom, my mind starts racing right back, and I'm back in like the same spot that I feel like I was right before I was diagnosed. So really for me, where I'm at now has been kind of trying to find that baseline. And so I've been doing a lot of therapy, honestly. So I've like cognitive behavioral therapy has been really helpful for me, as well as the last year I was really fortunate to find somatic body work, which is this different type of therapy that is like soma, it means body. So it kind of connects body, mind, and spirit. And so the theory is that when you go through like a traumatic event, that those memories can get lodged in your body. And there's also like a really good book, The Body Keeps Score, that talks about this. And so sometimes just talking about things, it doesn't necessarily break those pathways. And so combining talking with actual physical touch is a way to kind of bring that trauma to the surface and get almost your muscles to relax, and you can finally like peace, because there's the mental part, but then there's also the physical part. So this somatic body work has been life-changing for me. And so that just combines, I found a wonderful practitioner near my house that does it. And it's just combining kind of Eastern and Western medicine with like acupressure points. And it's that and cognitive behavioral therapy and being in these support groups. I mean, it's really helped me kind of find purpose and meaning to when those feelings pop up and those anxieties and fears that my loved ones and friends might not understand, but I find there's someone in a support group somewhere that's going through something that I've gone through or might be facing that I can help, or they can help me. So it's been really rewarding.
I mean, I think I want to go have some somatic body work done. This sounds great. I mean, I've had acupuncture done before, and I know, some people could be like, I'm not into all that stuff, but I mean, it worked for me. I actually did it for carpal tunnel, and it worked for years. So I feel like those type of things, they're different. Yeah, that's not the typical thing. Go to the doctor and get a pill. It's something different, but it's probably in the end can be a lot more effective. So it's really interesting to hear you talking about how you're using it to kind of deal with some of the after effects and, trying to get yourself to, more acceptance and calming as you continue going through life. And as things come up, I can imagine there would always be that, oh, is this something, is this something I have to be worried about? So all the more important for you to know how to kind of relax yourself when that comes up. So this has been really an amazing story. I mean, I think there's almost two components to it. I mean, like, obviously there's the specific cancer part of it. And if, someone has, in our audience is going through their own cancer journey, I feel like definitely some very specific things that they can take from this, but also just generally speaking, a lot of what you've said is just so applicable across the board for anything we go through. Like, one of the things early on when you were talking about when you were first diagnosed and you wished that maybe you had been diagnosed earlier, but how if you had, you may have missed out on some of these new treatments that were available. And it just brings to my mind that sometimes our timing, when we want things to happen, is not always the right timing. And we can get frustrated, we can maybe get mad, we can get angry, but sometimes it's actually not the right timing. And if we are willing to wait and, accept that the timing is different, it actually can be so much better for us. So that's one thing that I think just generally we all can take something away from that and for our own life. So if someone, if anyone out here, listening would want to connect with you further or follow your journey, you've mentioned your blog, but, where else could they connect with you if they wanted to follow you or touch base with you individually?
Yeah, so the best place to find me, of course, is my blog, hopefulwarrior.com. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at The Hopeful Warrior. But if you're the best place on my blog is actually the resource section, because that actually has a good kind of almost like a table of contents of my blogs throughout the last 3 years, depending on what you're kind of going through. And if you or a loved one is dealing with cancer, there are a lot of great resources in that section as well. So that's a great place to start.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. And as Stephanie said, there's a bunch of awesome insights, nuggets on not just cancer, but like how we can approach these challenges that come up in our lives. But if there was one thing that you really wanted to like narrow in on for people to take away from this interview, what would you say is like the most important thing?
Yeah, I would say that, don't be afraid of pain. I feel like so many of us, we spend a lot of our lives, and I know I did, like trying to shelter myself and my loved ones from pain and trying to numb it away with alcohol. And ultimately, I found through my journey with cancer that when I've actually faced the pain, right, head on, and that fear, and kind of charged straight ahead into that uncertainty, it's not as scary and bad as we thought, right? Like the fear is the ultimate threshold guardian. And on the other side it's an incredible life of like purpose and meaning and hope, right? And hope and strength can be found in the most unexpected places. So, just keep your heart and mind open.
Thank you so much, Melanie. You've really just blessed us, I think, with your story, your perspective on your journey, your hope. It's very encouraging. And so thank you for being willing to come on and share your story with our audience. And I hope, everyone listening will go check out your blog. You've obviously got a large following already. So obviously some good stuff out there. So folks, go check that out and connect with Melanie on her Facebook or Instagram at The Hopeful Warrior. And that's all we have for today. This was great. Fantastic. Thank you so much again, Melanie.
To all you Hope Warriors out there, thank you for joining us today to hear another incredible story.
We hope that you are encouraged and are taking away something positive for your own life. If you want to hear more stories like the one today, be sure to subscribe to this podcast.
And don't forget to tell your friends about it, because we can all use some extra hope in our lives.